Because imagine kind of like a middle class business guy neighborhood as being a whole country.
Welcome to Cologne, Germany's fourth most populated city, rich in culture, shopping, museums, including one entirely dedicated to chocolate, and home of one of the most magnificent cathedrals in the world. Today we have the pleasure of sitting down with an American expat of nearly 10 years, as he gives us a window into just what it is like being an expat in this beautiful country.
Basically what happened is I've been working as a programmer to pay for my school and going to college partially, and but I've been studying languages, and German was one of the languages. It was actually my major concentration was in the German language. So I had already studied a lot about Germany, and I had even, by the time I graduated, I had done an internship in Germany where I had worked doing programming for a German company and stuff like that. So I pretty much knew what to expect. Well, my first impression, when I remember, was that because I came over for Christmas, and there was snow, and it was white Christmas, and it was a lot colder and a lot different. So my first impression was mainly just the weather. The German culture wasn't a lot different from what I had expected, possibly because I had already studied it in school, but also I think in general there's not that big of a difference between the American culture and the German culture in a lot of ways. So I didn't have anything that was like a crazy culture shock, because there was a big difference between me going to Argentina and working there compared to the US. I felt like that was a lot bigger difference than Germany. Oh, there's definitely like cultural attributes that are German. But also with me, it's kind of problematic because I've been living, like my whole adult life has basically been here in Germany. Because as soon as I got through with school, I moved to Germany, So I don't know what it's like. I don't have the U.S. to compare it to. Like, what's it like in the U.S. to go to work and then go back to your house once you've got a job, I just have the experience of being in high school or whatever and like working to make money or working some kind of freelance job while I'm in school. So I don't know what it's like once you're in the 40-hour week job every day. But like for instance, there's definitely German cultural things that are they're funny, and it's like pretty much shared by almost every German. Like being on time. You do not want to be late for a meeting in Germany.
Really?
Yes. You should be on time for everything. If you're 5 minutes late, that's it.
What do you mean? Your job's in jeopardy or what?
Definitely people are going to be pissed. And it's just one of those things that you don't do in Germany. Like you are expected to be punctual, expected to be at the place on time. Germans are super risk averse. So I think we're one of the top saving countries in the world. So Germans are going to be saving lots of money. If they buy a house, they'll see that as an investment to like buy a house and say, okay, that's my investment for when I'm old and I go into retirement. And just not doing anything risky, like spending, the whole credit, like how people spend with credit cards and all that stuff in the U.S. Like, no way. Like even Merkel, she exemplifies a lot of what Germans stand for, which is low risk, slow progress, never radical change, right? Never. So we're in Germany, there's never going to be anything, like Silicon Valley, these car companies, Uber, whatever, they're like, we got this brilliant idea, we're just going to break laws and implement it, it's going to make society better. Like, never going to happen in Germany. Germany is, okay, can we get 1.5% growth this year? I think we can do it. Are we going to have an inflation rate of 1.3%? Yeah. Okay, so we're going to have 0.2% growth. Looks good. Let's shoot for that. This is why I think it's not that much different than American culture a lot of times with Germans. Because imagine kind of like a middle class business guy neighborhood as being a whole country. That's kind of German. It's like the German culture. So usually it's people that are like minding their own business. They expect, for instance, if people are waiting in a line for everyone to get in their place in the line, no one's going to cut in front of other people. You know what I'm saying? Like that type of thing. Like everyone's supposed to be orderly and do everything in the right, like whatever the right way is. Like there's a right way to do something. So if you've got a red light, people are going to stop and they're going to wait. Now there's going to be some people that go across when it's red, but then you'll see other people like shaking their heads at them and be like, look at these losers walking across the red light. Like, I can't believe it. And that's very typically German, is like complaining, but not really loud. Like, you know how in the US you would have like this charismatic people's like, no, I can't believe you're doing this, blah, 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 and they're getting super loud about it. Like, you will never see that in Germany. It's mainly just kind of like this under your breath, like, oh, look at this person just not abiding by the laws we've got here. Can't believe it. Oh, yeah. Yeah. Because, well, first of all, I spoke the language. I speak English, which is a bonus in Germany, by the way. So if you can speak German and English, you're slaying it. And then you got my career, so programming, software development, software engineering, all that kind of stuff. It's super hard to find people, so yeah. I had it really easy. I remember when I first came here, this was like a week after I'd flown in, and they asked me, we were doing something at like the place where to get married or whatever, and they asked me, they were like, do you want welfare? And I was like, no, I've already got a job, thanks, though. That was one of the first things they asked me. I remember I was like, I don't know if I like this. It's like, I've only been here a week, and they're trying to get me on some program. So the social system is so that you pretty much, like, okay, you know in the US, if you see a homeless person, how you're more tempted to have sympathy with them because you're like, oh, well, it's going to be really hard for this person to actually have a house and all that kind of stuff. Like over here, if you're a homeless person, you basically have no excuse for it because you can literally go to the welfare system and they'll give you housing, they'll give you food, they'll give you everything. So the safety net is there for everyone. Like, all you got to do is just go and say, hey, I want a place to live and some food. And you got a place to live and some food. Yeah, okay, so Germans are all about their regulations and all about their bureaucracy. And, you know, how do you phrase it? Like crossing the T's and dotting the I's. So everything has to be in its right place. Everything has to be done correctly in whatever manner. So if there's a law, you better believe they're going to be controlling that law. So if you're not supposed to park here from, you know, around this place from, I don't know, after 5 o'clock, they're going to be some bureaucrats in some suits that are going around saying, oh, this guy's parked here after 5 o'clock, let's write him a ticket. And it's that way with everything. So, you know, you got a pretty big bureaucracy, but it's controlled. You don't have a lot of corruption, so corruption's really low. And they've got a lot of redistributive policies. So, like corporate tax rates, I think here pretty good bit higher in the U.S. than in the U.S. Your income tax is a lot higher, or significantly higher. And then the way the money's spent by the government is also way less military spending and a lot more on social programs. So at the end of the day, what you end up having is a much larger bureaucratic system, not much corruption, and a lot of redistributed resources so that you have different programs for all kinds of people. So. And another thing they do is they like subsidize consumer staples so that food's cheaper, health foods are cheaper. That was one of the first things I noticed when I came over here. Actually, I remember that now, is that a lot of like fruits and vegetables was way cheaper than in the U.S. Because in the U.S. it's super expensive if you want to eat healthy. So that's pretty. I don't know. It leads to a much more relaxed lifestyle. Like another thing they have is pretty much in every industry you have to have 25, I think it's a minimum 25 days paid vacation every year. So most Germans are going to have between 5 weeks to 6 or 7 weeks paid vacation every year. And that's another thing that's typically German is always taking your vacation. So Germans will go like on 2 big vacations a year or 2 weeks, you know. Well, I'll put it to you this way. I think there's a lot of diversity in Germany. I was looking at some of the stats recently. I think like 1 in 4 people is foreign or foreign born in Germany. So, you know, about 25% of the population, which is pretty big. But I think that was just for recent years in birth rates. So I don't know. But I know if you sit in the train, a lot of times you'll be speaking whatever language you speak. And then there'll be some Polish people sitting next to you speaking Polish. And then some Turkish people speaking Turkish. And a lot of times you're like, well, okay, there's no Germans on this train. Because, you know, you got good salaries, a great social welfare system. You know, like I said, everyone's kind of middle class. So a lot of other, now with the European Union, how it's free to just go anywhere and work, a lot of people want to get work in Germany. Probably the biggest barrier I think people have is the German language. That's why a lot of people can't do it. Because you have to know German to be able to work in Germany. My day-to-day life as a programmer is pretty much the day-to-day life of every programmer. I'm not too sociable with all that. So, like typical German things would probably go into a Kneipe or something after work, you know, like a bar, and then drinking beers with friends and stuff like that. So, because I don't drink, I don't do that. You know, watching soccer. It's another biggie. German, like that's the only sport in Germany, basically. Which that took a lot of adjusting to. Is that the only sport is soccer. Because I love sports. Very few people are into basketball. Almost no one's into football, except for the Super Bowl, maybe. Some people know about the Super Bowl. Baseball, like no one even has a clue about. Even though what's funny now is my boss actually plays on a baseball team. So every now and then you'll meet people that are kind of into American sport, but usually it's like on the edge, and then no one's going to talk about it at work. You know, like the NBA Finals, no one's going to even know what that is, basically. Or I've never had the case where I was at work and people knew what was going on. Well, I'll tell you, I think kind of the perception, and this is what a lot of Germans don't really get about the U.S., is how big it is. Because a lot of times they'll ask me, they're like, what do you think about this? And what do you think about this? And I'm like, I have no idea. Because it's not from this, the South. It's not from the 2 states I spent time in. And there's 50 states. And, California is completely different from Alaska, which is probably completely different. Definitely completely different from New York, which is completely different from Boston, which is completely different from Atlanta, And that's a completely different culture from Miami. Yeah, so when we first moved here, I applied for jobs and got a job in Stuttgart. And so we moved down to Baden-Württemberg. And that's like its own cultural place that's different from Germany. So one of the things, in the U.S. you've got like the Boston accent, and then you got Miami where everyone speaks Spanish, and the different like southern accents and all that kind of stuff. But there's not, you have to go kind of a long ways to see something new or see a different accent and have a really completely different culture. Here in Germany, you don't have to go as far to get that. So we got, in Stuttgart, they have a very specific kind of way of speaking. It's their own dialect. So that was a little interesting right when I first moved to Germany to hear that. And also there, I feel like it was much more formal. So they had a more formal type culture. Like if you were to go out outside in, say, just sweatpants and not looking like you're taking a shower or whatever, people would definitely be looking at you like, what is this person doing?
So you're like, I gotta get out of here?
Yeah, so pretty much I was like, yo, I can't do this, me looking like a hobo. Yeah, and so we went to, after we spent a year there, we went to Berlin. And Berlin is the complete opposite. So in Berlin, you can basically do whatever you want, and no one's even gonna look twice at you. So you can be wasted in your undies, like passed out in a train, basically. And people are just like, whatever, I gotta sit down, because there you've just got so many people from all over the world that are, living, going to work, just carrying on with their lives. That doesn't matter what you do. You can do whatever you want. But at the same time, it is a little too, I guess for us, after a couple years living there, it was just a little too hipster. Started getting seriously invaded by the hipsters. For me, at least. But Berlin's still a great city. I liked living there. Yeah, so then we moved to Münster, and that city I loved it. Anna was a little bit less of a fan of it because, I don't know, maybe because we didn't socialize with enough people, but I loved it because it's the biking paradise. Everyone in that city bikes everywhere, and they've got bicycle routes all over the city perfectly. Like it's surrounded by a park. The city itself is surrounded by a park where you can ride your bikes around the park. You can pretty much go anywhere you want on a bike trail in that city, and then everyone rides bikes. Like, I really enjoyed Münster. Yeah, and so then we moved to Cologne, and Cologne is kind of like something in between, I would say. Berlin, so not as completely informal as Berlin, where it's like we don't care what you do, and it's pretty diverse. A lot of our media stuff's here, so if you ever watch something in film or on TV, a lot of times those studios are actually here in Cologne. And you'll see people like interviewing or maybe filming movies on the street and stuff, which is kind of cool. Cologne's on the water. That's also one of the great things. There's a river, the Rhine, that goes through Cologne. And you can basically get on your bike and just have a beautiful ride all the way down this river through tons of cities. So if you ever want to go on like a good biking trip, it's great. If you're in the downtown at the cathedral, you're definitely going to get tourists because there's tons of people every day coming take pictures of the cathedral. But everywhere else, I mean, I don't notice it at all, really. It doesn't seem to be touristy to me. So before Anna, so she moved a little before I moved, and she was living in Deutz, which is on the other side of the river where we are right now. And that was a pretty nice area, actually. But yeah, it depends on what you want to do. What I really like about Cologne is the fact that you've got parks everywhere to play basketball, to play soccer, to go running. And living in the city, you're close to everything. So that's pretty much the gist of all the cities I've experienced. And my favorite is probably Cologne, I'm not gonna lie. Probably one of the most important things is that you have that German work ethic, which is come to work on time, never be late, and do your job. I would say the biggest problem you probably have as a foreigner if you're coming from another country is that you need to have the ability to work in Germany. So you need that work in Germany permit, because then companies don't have to do anything. I got that because I'm married to a German. So if you're married to a German, you can work for any German company immediately. The other way to do it is if you're already here studying, then you can just get a job and also immediately work. So if you're a student, you've got I want to say up to like a year after that to be able to get a job and work for any company, and the company doesn't have to do too much paperwork as far as I know. But if someone's coming outside the EU, just randomly, someone in the US right now, they're like, oh, I want to go get a job in Germany or South America or whatever. Like, that German company's gonna have to do a lot of paperwork to get that employee inside their company. They have to basically be able to prove, okay, there was no one in Germany that was qualified for this job, and there was no one in the EU qualified for this job, because that's kind of like also the hierarchy. They have to say, okay, is there someone in Germany qualified for this job when they're getting applicants? If not, okay, is there someone in the EU that applied for this job that's qualified? Not, okay, now outside the EU, you're able to hire people. Yeah, but I would say if you just bring the work ethic, and it's not like a ridiculous slave work ethic where you're just killing yourself with labor. It's just mainly doing your job, trying to do your best, that kind of thing. Germans are great to work with and work for. It's been my experience. Because you have a good balance. You have a good balance of hard, steady work, getting the job done, and then, having the time to recover so that you don't burn yourself out, type thing. The biggest thing I notice is people just not having the German language skills. So you don't have to be fluent. It's not like Germans care if you have an accent or anything. You just got to be able to, when a customer comes in and is like, hey, I need this bike repaired or whatever, that you can be like, okay, what's wrong with your wheel? Or whatever it is, just enough to communicate. I would think not, honestly, just because, there are some things that are great in Germany, like Weihnachtsmärkte, or Christmas, like Christmas markets and stuff. So, Glühwein, which is like hot wine, all kinds of stuff that's great about Germany. But I don't think there is tourism for Oktoberfest, and some. I think that's the main one. But mainly, no. I would say not, because the weather here is just not that great. Other than the summer. Summer weather here is amazing because you have that, in the south, that fall weather where it's not really rainy. It's that perfect temperature where you can maybe wear jeans and a t-shirt and you're feeling pretty good. And you can go play football on the field and like for hours and not really sweat that much. Like you've got that kind of weather for the whole summer, basically. So it's a beautiful time to visit Germany. But I would say we don't really have a lot of beaches or anything here. So, for that kind of stuff. If you really enjoy, like hiking. If you really enjoy hiking, then like the Alps and southern Germany's got a lot of stuff. But also all over northern Germany too. I mean, all over Germany, there's great hiking trails and biking trails and all that kind of stuff. So if you just enjoy like outdoorsy stuff, Germany's pretty good. My advice would be if you were thinking about going to Germany because you wanted to like improve your standard of living or just, work in Germany, live in Germany for whatever reasons, right? If you're of the age where you're still studying, I would say go study in Germany because it's very easy for you to get a job as a student. And then you can just immediately start working for German companies. So instead of like finishing your degree and applying then for jobs in Germany, I would say just try to get your degree in Germany. And that's another great thing is you can get your degree in Germany at very low cost. Like a lot of our universities cost nothing. And the ones that do cost something, you're talking, a couple $100 a semester. The biggest hurdle for most people, and this is what I would say, like, is the German language. Because there are some universities now where you might not have to know, the whole program might be in English. But I think even to get accepted to them, you have to have German language skills that are good enough to say, okay, well, I can read German, communicate, and be in a class where they're teaching German, or teaching some subject in German. So, but still, it's not too high of a hurdle. So if you just started learning German, say, when you were in high school, you could probably get to a level where you were good enough to pass that test. And you could get into a German university, study over there, and then immediately get a job afterwards. So that's if you're young. That's the route to go. If you're not, it's going to be a lot harder. At the very beginning, it was super hard. And I already spoke another language, So that was the second time I had to learn language. And it's really hard because they have the der, die, das, and the genders that make no sense. So it's not like Spanish where you can hear a word and it's like, oh, okay, información. That's feminine, Like you can hear the word and what its gender is. In German, at least for me, even to this day, it just all sounds completely random. Like for instance, little girl, Mädchen, is it's like the neutral gender. So it's das Mädchen. And why? I have no clue. And that's the way it is with pretty much everything. Just like random genders assigned to whatever, like chair is der, so it's masculine. Table is feminine. People will understand what you're saying regardless. Like if you say the wrong one, I'm still gonna understand you're telling me to open the door. It'll just sound like open. It would be weird if you said open a door or open that door instead of just open the door. It would be like, why is he saying that? You know what I'm saying? It's that kind of thing.
Was the accent and the pronunciation of the different words difficult?
Yeah, pretty difficult, even though it's not. I would say actually compared to Spanish, no. Because when you speak Spanish and English, your throat and mouth and everything's completely different. But when you speak German, like for instance, I'll just switch it up real quick, okay? So wenn ich jetzt auf Deutsch rede, dann hört sich so an, and then when I change to English, it's almost the same thing, aber man hört kaum einen Unterschied. Also das heißt, it's a little bit like the same parts of your throat that are moving. Whereas in Spanish, your throat muscles and everything's different. So I would say that's not too hard. There are some different sounds in German, like the R always gets people. It's like the alles schwarzlige. It's like in the back of your throat, that kind of R. Yeah, so my final words are, okay, German language is hard, but you don't have to get everything perfect. Just study it. And my advice to young people would be, come to Germany, study. Education's super cheap, basically free, and you can get a job right after it. And even if you're older, you can still get into a university. So that would be my path almost always recommended to everyone. It's like, learn enough language to get into a university, come here for university, and then you can get a job. It's much easier, I think, than if you're just randomly applying for jobs.
And you'll be here, so I'll put your email so people can ask you questions.
Definitely not.